Good afternoon. This is Richard Kattman. I'm a landscape architect, artist, and photographer at ArtSpace Maynard, Massachusetts, on May 21st, 2016. This is an exhibition of my abstract paintings that were created plein air at 3 artists' residences that I have occupied in the last year and a half. One at Fruitlands Museum in Harvard, Mass., the second in Italy at La Macchina di San Cresci in Greve Chianti in Italy, and the third at Nantucket Island School of Design on the island of Nantucket in September 2015. The first painting that you're looking at is titled Tuscany and represents in an abstract manner the various emotional feelings that I had about being in Italy, and also represents paint as paint in creation of an abstract artwork. This painting is comprised of the colors red, yellow, blue, orange, green, violet, burnt umber, black, and is quite active in the numbers of brush marks and movement of those marks throughout the painting. To me, it represents what Italy really is all about, which is beautiful color, historic architecture dating back hundreds of years, steep hills with cypresses, beautiful skies, beautiful water, beautiful architecture, and the patterns of vineyards, olive groves, and hill towns. The second painting is another painting from Italy. It's titled Una Pagina, and it's similar to the first painting that we looked at in its color ranges, but it includes in the upper left a more realistic view of the bell tower at the church at La Macchina di San Cresci. Again, the colors are in the range of red, yellow, blue, orange, green, violet, with some mountains and sky and landscape colors. The next painting in this series is titled Magic Mountain. This is a painting that was done in the studio in Holliston, Massachusetts, in the winter of 2015. After reading a story in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times about a series of, a group of internationally renowned skiers who had been trapped in an avalanche in Washington. I was quite obsessed with that idea. They were skiing backcountry, and they were all obsessed with the idea of skiing free in soft falling snow when they in fact were trapped by this avalanche. At the same time, I was reading the book Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, and I was so obsessed with those two ideas that I created this painting. This painting was done actually over a period of time of about 3 months. I had looked and worked on the painting and then set it aside and then finished it after contemplating some changes, and this is the end result. These are some of the details of this painting. The next painting in this series is a painting titled Dark Forest, and this is a painting that was done when I was leaving Italy in the end of May in 2015, and we were flying into Germany over literally the dark forest. My family being German, it created many emotional responses in me, seeing the dark forest from above, but also thinking about the impact of the forests of Germany on the many generations of people that have lived there. This painting was completed in the studio, and these are some of the colors and marks of this painting. This is a scan of the room at ArtSpace Maynard. There are a total of 14 paintings in this exhibition. 12 large-scale paintings that average about 6 feet by 6 feet, and 2 paintings that are 2 feet square. The next painting is a painting that was done at Fruitlands Museum. This is basically in the range of yellow with blue, red, yellow, and orange corners, which is where I started and typically start to paint. Sometimes that gives me a way of beginning without really having to worry about what I'm doing. This is a painting overlooking, where I was overlooking the Stillwater Valley, high up on Prospect Hill, overlooking the mountains of New Hampshire in the distance. The yellow color, again, came from the sun streaming on my shoulders, but it was also the color of an Amish house which is on the property. And the black patterning on the upper left represents, to me at least, the window patterns of that house that was built by the Amish. The next painting, and I'll try to move it along a little bit, the next painting is called A Modern Renaissance. This is comprised of brightly colored pinks, yellows, oranges, with some marks to the outer edges. The painting is influenced by both Da Vinci, where I was trying to replicate a drawing that Da Vinci had done of the Mona Lisa or of angels, and the outer verticals being taken from a Helen Frankenthaler painting titled Tulip Tint. So I've called this painting A Modern Renaissance because it is comprised of those two components, the ancient quality of learning to draw and paint properly, and the contemporary quality of working in the abstract. This painting is titled Dr. Tulp. Rembrandt painted a painting of Dr. Tulp, who gave a lecture called The Anatomy Lesson. I was reading a book on Rembrandt. It was a fictional book, and it mentioned that Dr. Tulp loved various pinks as his favorite colors, and all of his trappings and carriages were painted in a brilliant pink. So one day when I was at Fruitlands Museum painting away, I had the idea that I would like to do a canvas in that range, and this is the result of that. These are some of the colors in this painting: pinks, yellows, reds. This canvas is titled Causeway. The idea for this painting came from my travels to and from Fruitlands Museum from my home. When I drove to Fruitlands, there was a location where I always crossed the Sudbury Reservoir by a causeway, and I had a feeling of free-floating or free-falling every time I drove across that causeway because of the reflections of the landscape in the water, but also the reflections of the clouds in the sky. And when I arrived at Fruitlands, I decided to try to paint an image of what I had in mind about that experience. And this painting, Causeway, is the result of all that work and thought that went into it. This painting, I'm going to just describe briefly. This is a painting that I did during the early fall colors at Fruitlands Museum. It's called Russet, and it does incorporate the colors of the sugar maples and oaks of the Stillwater Valley, and also the blue sky and green fields that occur there. This painting was produced in the studio in the winter of 2015. It is a memory of the fields of La Macina di San Cresci in Tuscany, basically showing the color of the green fields in Italy, but also with the symbol in the upper center of the patterns of vineyard fields. It also contains blues, water-like, and some dots that occur on the canvas as poppies, perhaps. But the canvas relates back to thinking about a painter like Larry Poons, where he's showing brilliant contrasts of color against each other, and also playing with the idea of surface and depth in the painting. This painting is titled "Stella Keeps Getting His Groove Back." I was reading the Wall Street Journal one day, and I read about Frank Stella and Andy Warhol's work being sold for millions of dollars at auction at Sotheby's, and I was somewhat frustrated having my coffee, thinking about the 1% and trying to sell artwork as an emerging artist. So in anger and frustration, one day in the studio, I produced this painting quickly, using images from Andy Warhol and a collage lettering from the Wall Street Journal about Frank Stella getting his groove back. This painting is another version of the Stillwater Valley from Fruitlands Museum. I don't think I need to go into too much detail regarding it, but you can see it moves from the lower edge to the center and then the upper area, and it looks a bit as though it's an aerial perspective. The red mark to the upper left sends you off into space, and the colors seem to be moving in a rotational, centrifugal manner in a clockwise movement. Last of all, of the 12 paintings, many of the series that I've worked on have been in the color ranges red, yellow, blue, orange, green, violet, burnt umber, and black. This painting being one in the violet color range. The thing that I would like to mention about it is that it is typically a big color field, and it does have color contrasts, red and green, with a lot of the activity happening on the edges, being in the idea of it being a color field. So thank you for being here, seeing this show, and I hope you appreciate it and have an idea of why I do abstract painting.